Come on in, room 442.
Today in room 442, Bonkerinos. As Sarah Pereira says, what a weekend. CR 700, not bad for a skinny guy from Madeira. MLS Decision Day didn't disappoint, unless you're Vancouver. And every Wednesday, Champions League match and how to win money. This is room 442.
Right, just some breaking news regarding Kylian Mbappe, because PSG have come out saying that the forward is not for sale, despite reports in Spain and France claiming that he's unhappy and that he wants to leave in January.
Welcome back to room 442. Hope you guys had a wonderful long weekend. I'm joined with Albert and James on the couches here. Later today, guys, we are talking UCL Rapid Fire, all of Wednesday's matches, and I'm joined with Mikey Singh just before that, talking TFC and their off-season. But we have to talk about this news we just found out this morning. Kylian Mbappe not happy at PSG, and, you know, the one and only Fabrizio Romano tweeted this out. Kylian Mbappe not happy with PSG as current situation is really tense. He wants to leave the club as soon as possible. PSG feels that he's really putting pressure on the club and that they have no intention to sell Mbappe in January.
What does this guy want? I don't understand.
I don't know,
They've
man.
given him everything. He has say on managers and players and who knows what. They basically gave him the key to Paris. And he's still not happy, which is, it's so strange to me. And now it sounds like, based on rumors, that he actually might be leaving in January to Real Madrid, that's not fair.
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
I mean, they're the one club that can really afford him at this point.
And that's where he wants to go.
He's not going to City. They've got a pretty good striker there right now. Chelsea might get involved in this at some point. I know there are rumors about Liverpool that he's way too rich for them right now. But it's a real shame, isn't it? Because this guy, I think, is a pretty level-headed guy, generally speaking. He's smart. He's shown that in his career so far. Very strategized where he's going and when he's going. But the last year or so, it hasn't looked good to him at all. And this, again, like you said, he looks like a sport brat at this point. Mm. He goes to the France national team. He gets upset with the federation and sponsorships. And now this, I mean, sometimes you've got to look at your life and go, it's not so bad. But hey, listen, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but you're playing with Messi and Neymar. You're going to win Ligue 1 again. You're going to possibly go for a long run in the Champions League. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah,
but you're right. I think there is a lot of toxicity kind of revolving around this guy right now. And he seems like a bit of like a nasty player, it almost seems, with everything that's come out as of late. My question is, why didn't he go to Real Madrid then in the summer when it was all set up for him to go and it kind of seemed like he was the perfect fit for Real?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, we'll never know the answers to these things. We don't really know what's going on. I personally believe that there has to be some sort of deal between him and Real Madrid that's locked away in a vault somewhere that's like, listen, this is going to happen. Because it just seems too strange that this is happening right now and it's leading into January. Very strange to me. But what I also think could be a factor is Erling Haaland. And because he's kind of getting all the publicity right now because he's playing in the Premier League, which is known as one of the biggest leagues in the world because, of the notoriety that it has. So maybe he feels like he needs to make the move to La Liga, which is another big league, to kind of, establish himself even more.
But we said before, didn't we? If he stays in France, is his legacy tarnished because it is the French First Division. It's a really good league, but it's not considered top 3 in the world, right? So to prove himself in the biggest stage, he must go to England or to Spain at this point. They're your two options, let's be honest here, right? Yeah. But like you said, he could have done this in the off-season, right? So maybe, I know the French Prime Minister Macron called him up at some point and said, please stay in Paris, maybe that has some power. His mum's got a big influence on him as well, staying closer to home perhaps. But I mean, after what, it's still early in October. And to fall out with the club at this point that badly. And listen, rumors are rumors, we get that, but when Fabrizio Romano tweets it, there's something to it for sure. Right. This story is going to evolve over the next few days and weeks probably. We're going to be sitting here a lot talking about Kylian Mbappe and where he ends up. So I'm with you. I think Real Madrid is the natural endpoint to this game, which hopefully will end in January and we'll just move on and get over this.
We'll see. I mean, PSG are taking on Benfica today in the Champions League as well, so lots of drama heading into that match. But let's look into the weekend and what happened as well. Liverpool and Arsenal. What a match that was. One of the headlines I found was Hamann predicts Klopp sack discussion at Liverpool with Henderson incident. a sign. So let me just break this down a little bit. Liverpool obviously lost to Arsenal. Lots of talks about whether Klopp is going to stay or not. And then on top of that, Henderson and Gabriel got into a heated,
Little spat.
conflict. And there are rumors that there could have been some racial slurs being thrown. A lot going on with Liverpool, James. I have to ask you right now, how are you feeling about the squad?
I'm putting my, broadcaster's hat on, not the fan hat. And listen, they're in trouble right now. You can forget about the championship, obviously. Top four is the concern right now. They have to finish top four if they're going to sign Mbappe. But, there's issues there. They look tired, obviously. Their best players are all in poor form right now. They're all getting a little bit older as well. Maybe it's time for a big refresh, and maybe that should have come this past off season. They didn't do it. As for these rumors about Klopp, I think it's nonsensical. He's earned the right to try and rebuild this squad, I think. And as for Henderson, I mean, listen, you have no idea what happened in that conversation. It would surprise me. Who's the right kind of person to say these things?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard to comment on that.
Of all the people who play professional football, he's a class act. I'd be extremely surprised if that happened, but who knows?
Yeah, I love when it gets heated between two teams. I mean, hopefully nothing was said that was racist or derogatory or whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. But on Spurs on Liverpool, like
Freudian slip there.
Yeah, exactly. Like Liverpool, so many players are out of form. I mean, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk, Thiago, Henderson, Fabinho, Salah, exactly. And it almost seems like, based on that 11 that he played against Arsenal, it almost seems like Klopp is still trying to figure out what the best system is with this team now.
Well, to go from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1.
With Jota in the 10,
coach.
which is a bit strange. I actually thought they didn't look as bad as people are saying. I mean, the second half, there was a significant drop-off. But in the first half, I thought they were going toe-to-toe with Arsenal. And Darwin Nunez looked great. Thiago was actually playing all right. But it's just, there's such a serious drop-off with some of these players that I think any team can have a go at Liverpool at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe the World Cup will be actually good for this
Could
side.
be, yeah, but by that point, who knows how many points back and forth they are, right?
Who knows? Really quickly, guys, we have to shout out Cristiano Ronaldo. CR700, 700 goals, and helped Man U beat Everton. What a weekend it was for him.
Yeah, he looked pretty good too. Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good coming off the bench. I mean, it was Martial, I think, in the first half who got injured. In comes Ronaldo. He had a few chances, and obviously the one that mattered, he scored. Good for him, I think, at least for the Portuguese national team and Fernando Santos, they'd want him to get going as soon as possible before the start of this World Cup.
Let's just quickly applaud. I mean, 700 goals is just insane.
Yeah.
No one's done it before. No one might do it again. Well, Haaland will probably one day, but no, it's just incredible. And whether you love him or whether you hate him, it's all irrelevant. He is something top drawer, very special, and those numbers are just, you can't even believe them, really, can you?
No.
We love to see it, guys. Stick with us. Next up, I'm on the couches with Mikey talking TFC.
If you like football, footy, soccer, football, calcio, whatever, please visit room442.com. As the dust settles and playoffs beckon, let's take a look at some of the winners and losers of the 2022 MLS regular season. From 3 bottom place finishes on the bounce with the worst record in MLS, to a first ever qualification for the playoffs and goals galore from your attackers. FC Cincinnati turned a major corner under head coach Pat Noonan this season, with Brenner, Luciano Acosta and Brandon Vasquez racking up a seriously impressive 46 goals and 33 assists between them. LAFC finished top of the Western Conference, but it wasn't all smooth sailing for new manager Steve Cherundolo, who had to navigate both a mid-season dip in form and the mid-season acquisition of Gareth Bale and Giorgio Chiellini. Bearing in mind the club failed to qualify for the playoffs last season, taking home the Supporter Shield in his first season in charge is a massive achievement for both Cherundolo and his side. Level in points with LAFC, Philadelphia Union finished first in the East and only narrowly missed out on the Shield with 2 fewer wins overall, but racking up 72 goals, Jim Curtin's side boasted the highest strike rate in the league and conceding only 26. They also put together the best defensive record in MLS. All told, the Union enjoyed one of the best regular seasons in league history and will hope to turn that form into an MLS Cup victory as well. At the other end of the spectrum, New England Revolution were one of the league's biggest disappointments this year after Bruce Arena failed to build on a stellar 2021 season. 12 months on from a first ever Supporters' Shield and single season points record, New England failed to make the playoffs and suffered a shock exit in the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Champions League. Now we have to talk about Toronto FC, who continue to flounder in the post-Greg Vanney era, despite acquiring the services of Lorenzo Insigne, arguably the most talented player in the league. The club ended the season second from bottom in the Eastern Conference with 5 straight defeats. TFC conceded 4 goals in each of those defeats and have a huge rebuilding job on their hands next season. And finally, DC United set the bar for a truly bad season with the worst overall record, the most losses, and the most goals conceded in the entire league. Wayne Rooney became the club's 3rd manager of the campaign when he took over in late July and summed up the experience by saying, "Thank God the season's over. I think it's a relief for all of us."
Yeah, Wayne Rooney isn't happy with the way the season went, and I can't imagine that Vanni Sartini will be either. Back on the couches, I'm joined with Mikey saying Vancouver just narrowly missed out on the playoffs there.
It was close. I mean, I got to give them credit. They pushed all the way to that point. Came down to the last game of the season. I'd even say the last half of the season because they were still pushing in that game. And yeah, unfortunately fell short. What I hope is that they don't give themselves false hope from this. I think Vancouver needs a serious evaluation in terms of what they need to progress moving forward. But it was nice to give the fans at least something to root for here down the stretch.
Sure, absolutely. And somebody else, who needs some serious evaluation is Toronto FC. Season is over. Not a great season overall. We have to talk about a few things looking into the offseason. And number one has to be Jonathan Osorio and his contract. Is he going to renew with TFC?
That's the biggest priority for me if I'm Toronto FC, if I'm Bob Bradley, Bill Manning. It's sorting out whether or not they can bring Jonathan Osorio back. Now, the sense all along that we get is that Ozo would prefer to wait until after the World Cup in hopes that he can secure a deal overseas in Europe. Now, that puts Toronto FC's plans a little bit behind, so they got to navigate this somehow, whether they prepare for Ozo to leave, they prepare for him to stay. They got to get a sense of what's going on here, and it's got to be quickly because he's so important to this team. The record when Jonathan Osorio's not in the lineup, Toronto FC is 1 win, 1 win, 1 draw, 9 losses. Not great, so he's so important to this team.
Yeah, and that will kind of affect, I think anyways, that one DP spot that they still need to fill. If Ozo's gone, does that change where they want to potentially, fill that spot? Because you could argue, we need people up front. You could argue if Ozo goes, we need that pivot in the middle. And you could argue that we need some serious defense here.
Yeah, I think it's really important because Jonathan Osorio operated as a DP quality player last year in terms of his production. He led TFC in goal scoring, goal contributions. We talked about how important he was when he wasn't in the lineup. Like, he's so important to this team. If he leaves, TFC need to spend that spot, in my opinion, on a central midfielder, as you're kind of referring to there, because they need to shore up that position. There's also talk, should they get a striker? Should they go after a defender? One thing I think I'll say is I believe they're going to go after another Italian. I wouldn't be surprised if you throw another Italian into the mix to add into Bernardeschi and Insigne. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, it's another big talking point as we head into this offseason. What will TFC do with that 3rd DP spot?
Well, let's talk a little bit about Toronto's defense because it's been really horrendous all season, regardless of who's been kind of coming in and injuries and whatnot. If they don't use that DP spot in their defense, how are they going to revamp their defensive line? Because as I mentioned, it's not good.
It's very not good. It's quite terrible, as you mentioned. 66 goals conceded for back-to-back seasons. Those are both the franchise record for goals conceded. TFC made a point this year about getting better defensively. It didn't happen. So what you need to do is, Chris Mavinga is a guy that's going to be out of contract at the end of the year. He took up a lot of budget space, so he's likely gone at the end of the year. you need to bring in two quality center backs, starting center backs. I think Shane O'Neill and Lucas McNaughton are a good 3-4 pieces, roster depth, squad players, whatever you want to call them. But they need to bring in two starting center backs, and they need to bring in two new goalkeepers. So I think actually structurally on the roster wise, they need to improve. And then all around the park, obviously defense, we can talk about, yeah, they need to improve center backs, but they need to improve everywhere in order to help their defense out. So yeah, a lot to do.
A lot to do, a lot of off season. So we'll see, and we'll stay in touch with TFC and kind of keep our eyes on what they're going to be doing. Guys, stay tuned. Coming up next, we have UCL Rapid Fire covering all of Wednesday's matches.
It's match day 4 in the Champions League, and some teams could clinch spots in the knockout round this week.
Yeah, and Wednesday's game could see a handful of teams all book their spots in the round of 16, including Club Brugge. Yes, Club Brugge. Shout out Tejan Buchanan.
Yep, but don't forget this round is the second of back-to-back, so narratives have been formed from last week's games. Albert, let's start in Group A.
Last week I backed Napoli to beat Ajax, and it hit big. Napoli scored 6 unanswered goals to beat Ajax 6-1 on their own patch. And listen, I said it before and I'll say it again. Nobody in this Group A wants anything to do with Napoli. I mean, it's not a stretch to say that nobody in Europe wants anything to do with them. They're that good. Unfortunately, Ajax will have to face them for the second time in just over a week on Wednesday. Not ideal considering the Dutch side are in a poor run of form, winning 1 in their last 5 while conceding in all of them. They'll also be missing their captain and best playmaker Dusan Tadic. He was sent off in the second half of last week's game. No bueno. Okay, to the bets, and I have 2 of them that I love. First, let's just back Napoli straight up on the money line. I know it's short at -170, but I don't see anything but a home win here. They haven't lost at all in any competition. Plus, they're scoring for fun. 13 goals in the Champions League puts them at the top for the most, but what's incredible is that they've scored 19 in their last 6 matches alone. This leads me to my next tip, back Napoli to score over 2.5 goals at +162. They've eclipsed that in every Champions League game this season.
Well, Liverpool are in the mud. The Reds lost to Arsenal over the weekend, but suffered much more of a blow than just the loss. Matip, Diaz, and Trent are all out with injuries. And to make matters worse, Klopp came out and said that Liverpool are no longer in the title race. But maybe that just means all their eggs will go into the UCL basket. They sit second in Group A as they get ready for the second match against Rangers, beating them comfortably last week. But they're headed to Ibrox Stadium, a very tough place to play. Not to mention the dark cloud hanging over their head. Rangers are coming off a massive 4-0 win over the weekend and will be looking for revenge. And Rangers have only lost 1 match at home this season overall, and that was to Napoli. But they also haven't scored in the UCL yet. Guys, this one could go either way, and there's no value in goals here, but if you want something, you can go for Liverpool to win and both teams to score at +160.
Group B raises some eyebrows with Club Brugge perfect so far and yet to concede a single goal. While its opponents, the pre-tourney group favourites Atletico, rooted to the bottom after 2 straight away losses. Brugge have been the story so far in this year's Champions League, but face Atletico, who will be out for revenge following last week's loss. The Spaniards haven't failed to advance to knockout since 2017-18, so this is a huge match at home for them. But I'm still buying into some Brugge magic, but although +700 for the win is tempting, this is Atletico at home. I'm taking the draw at +375, and if you're brave, take the under as well, meaning a 1-1 draw pays you at +460.
Xabi Alonso is back in the top tier of European football, but this time as a manager. The new Bayer Leverkusen boss will be on the touchline when his side hosts Porto on Wednesday. Leverkusen dispatched, I love that word, dispatched Schalke 4-0 at the weekend in Alonso's first match in charge. That was a result they desperately needed after back-to-back losses, including a 2-0 defeat to Porto. And this is a weird one to handicap. On one side, you have Leverkusen, who are terrible in the Bundesliga, but they seem to turn it up when the Champions League comes around. On the other, there's Porto that are in a good run of form but can't win away in Europe. They've lost 5 of their last 6 on the road in the Champions League. I'm more than happy to stay away from this one. New coach, up and down form, no thanks.
Well, I'm really pleased I got stuck with the Barcelona and Inter match. Barcelona have fallen off, quite simply. La Liga leaders are 3rd in Group C, losing to both Bayern and Inter in the first round. And after the international break, the Blaugrana got slammed with injuries, losing Araujo, De Jong, Depay, Bellerin, Koundé, Frank Kessie, and Andreas Christensen. This is a must-win UCL match for Barca right before El Clasico this weekend. It is at the Camp Nou, and Xavi's side need a win, otherwise they can kiss their chances of advancing to the round of 16 in the Champions League goodbye. Inter also aren't looking promising. They just barely beat Barcelona last week, and they sit 7th in the Serie A with Lukaku, Brozovic, and Correa still injured. Due to the severity of this match and Barcelona knowing they need this win, back the Blaugrana.
The mismatch of this matchday looks to be Viktoria Pilsen against Bayern Munich. Last week, Bayern ran rampant, winning 5-0. This week is back on the road, but coming off a blown 2-goal lead and a 2-2 draw in Der Klassiker against Borussia Dortmund, and a surly Bayern spells trouble for Pilsen. Here's a fun one for you that brings some value. Bayern to win over 2.5 goals and the heating up Sadio Mane to score, plus 125. Hey, it's tough to find much value in these one-sided affairs. In Group D, it's tight, but it's first against last as Sporting host Marseille. And this is a tough one to pick. As good as Sporting have been at home, they were smashed 4-1 in Marseille last week. Marseille have been good this season despite a slow start to its Champions League campaign, and are road warriors in all competitions, unbeaten in 4 of 5 in fact. Sporting are without Antonio Adan in goal after his red card against Marseille last week, but I just can't get over the home side and plus money. Take Sporting a plus 125.
Spurs versus Frankfurt. A 0-0 draw was the result in the first leg, and this is another match that I'm going to stay away from. I do believe Tottenham will get it done at home, but I don't want to be on the hook at minus 210. They've been underwhelming this season, especially in the Champions League. Frankfurt as well. Both sides have just 3 goals between them in the competition. In league play, Spurs have the edge and have been more consistent with their results in the Premier League. They're up to 3rd with just 1 loss to their name. As for Frankfurt, you never know what you're going to get. One week it's a 2-0 win over first place Berlin. The next, it's a 3-0 loss to last place Bochum. A box of chocolates and that whole thing. I think I may have found some value though. Spurs are really good at scoring from set pieces, the best in the Premier League actually. However, in the Bundesliga, Frankfurt can't defend them. They've conceded 7, which is the most in the league. And this leads me all to one thing, hopefully, and that's an Eric Dyer goal from a set piece. At plus 1300, it's definitely worth a sprinkle in my opinion. He's already got 2 goals on the season, one from a cross in the box and the other from a corner. All right, that's it for the show today. We'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.